Jigar Shah was also most recently a co-founder and president at Generate Capital, where he focused on helping entrepreneurs to accelerate decarbonization solutions through the use of low-cost infrastructure as a service financing. I got that out, Jigar. Prior to Generate Capital, I'd like to introduce you all to someone I've known quite a long time. Jigar Shah has been named one of the world's most influential people in 2024 by Time magazine. He's currently the director of the Loan Programs Office at the Department of Energy, overseeing a loan authority of $200 billion to support the implementation of clean energy projects across the United States. Jigar founded SunEdison, a company that has pioneered pay-as-you-save solar financing. Known as a solutionary, Jigar has revolutionized the solar energy market, and in his current role, he gets to realize his vision for the growth of other emerging energy technologies by getting them the financial support they so desperately need to reach commercialization. Jigar was also, we're proud to say, the 2024 recipient of the EarthDay.org Climate Visionary Award for his achievements as a clean energy entrepreneur, a pioneer, and democratizing the solar energy business in the early 2000s. He was way, way ahead of his time. So Jigar, welcome to 22 Minutes.
So happy to be here.
Well, I know you're super busy, so I'll get right to the questions. Can you share your sort of journey into the renewable energy sector and what inspired you to make these great life decisions? We're all really amazed by your career. It's been stunning.
It always looks logical in the rearview mirror, but going through it, look, I just thought we could do things in a different way. I mean, for most of our history and even today, what we do is really figure out how to burn stuff to make steam, to turn a turbine, to make electricity. Solar power is one of the unique different approaches where you have a semiconductor that accepts sunlight from the great fusion reactor in the sky that we call the sun, and turns it into DC power, which we then turn into AC power. It is genuinely new, and trying to figure out why this genuinely new technology wasn't breaking through has been a journey of a lifetime for me, and one that I've just been so excited to be on.
Well, and for those of you who are listening, and there will be many, many people, Jigar, those of you who don't really believe that renewable energy is a viable alternative to fossil fuel, what would you say, Jigar, to them?
Well, when I first started in the solar industry, we were at 0.001% of the global grid. I think today people are looking at what we're adding to the grid, and solar power alone is being added in terms of more dollars every single day than the entire oil and gas industry. And so when you think about how fast we're adding solar, it's extraordinary, even to me, who had high expectations. And so I think we're absolutely on track to solar power being 50% of all of our electricity globally, over the next few decades. That being said, we're still going to need diversification. So we're still going to need geothermal and hydro and wind power and all sorts of other clean energy technologies to really round out a balanced grid.
Right. When we have many countries running on other sources of power other than solar, which is amazing. So you're absolutely right. So can the world really run on sunshine? And where is it taking off in the US specifically? And how are we sort of staying competitive in the clean energy transition globally? That's always a worry of mine.
Well, look, I think that, for the last few years, probably 10 years, solar power has been one of the cheapest ways to add electricity to the grid. So that continues. Now, as we add more solar, we are starting to spill some of it. Now, it's not the same as an oil spill. When you spill solar power, it just means that it's power that isn't going to get used right now because we have too much of it. And so as a result, we're adding a lot of batteries. And we're actually time shifting that solar from times when we have way too much solar to times when we have less solar. And you're seeing, the Texas grid is the one that's adding solar the fastest as well as batteries the fastest. And the Texas grid has been growing load for the last couple of years really quickly. And it's only because of rapid deployments of solar and battery storage that they've maintained electricity abundance. And so we're very excited to see how much solar is getting added, but more importantly, how many of them are being added with batteries.
I'll just continue on that point for a second because when I've been doing this a long time too, not as concentrated on energy as you've been, but for me and for many people in the environmental movement and the general public that knows a lot or even a little bit about this, battery storage is the holy grail of everything. Is that still true? And where do you see that going? We read so much about it, but I don't know if we're at industry capacity in terms of battery storage. And I know you're already, DOE is investing in it. But tell us a little bit about your feelings about batteries storage in general.
I mean, we are in an interesting place right now where we have built out this magnificent grid. The grid is, the engineering marvel of the 20th century, and the grid is being used less and less every single year, because what happens is the grid is being basically measured based on whether it can meet the peak demand, which means when everyone gets home, when everyone turns everything on, right? Do we have enough capacity? The rest of the time, we have tons of excess capacity. And batteries allows you to shift from the times that you have excess capacity to the times that things are tight. And so what happens is batteries are the key to getting way more out of the grid that we already paid for. And we have a lot of that to run. So just to put in some numbers, we used to use the grid about 70% of the time. Today, it's less than 45% of the time, and that number is going down. And batteries are the key to getting that 45% number back up. And that means that the grid will be shared by many more users and be cheaper for everybody.
Okay, so that's part of what Earth Day does is we're an education organization, we're advocacy too. But in your opinion, what's the biggest challenge we face? Is it getting the public to buy it? Is it getting industry to invest more? I looked at some of the numbers that are just seem to be growing daily in terms of investment in renewable energy. So is it the public that's holding us up? Is it political leaders? Is it industry? Is it a combination of all three? And what can the general public do and your listeners to fast forward this?
Well, I think what I'd say is that, look, we are running at a pace that's three times higher than the last 30, 40 years, right? In terms of building new manufacturing capacity, deploying solutions, onshoring and reshoring here in our country. Now we're short people. We have 500,000 construction jobs that we need to fill over the next 10 years. That's a lot of people, and a lot of those are union jobs where people can get paid six figures if they get through all the training over the next 6 to 7 years, right? And so, really exciting times for folks who want to skip college and actually work with their hands. But the same thing is true for operating jobs. So once all of this construction is completed, you're going to have a working manufacturing facility, and we need to fill all those manufacturing facilities with quality workers. And so I think you're starting to see a realization across the board of just how much opportunity is in front of us. And we got to get people started at 16 years old. For those
Right.
folks who actually see themselves as loving working with their hands and actually getting into this as a career, this is the time to inspire people to see themselves in this future. And I think that that is something that, frankly, a lot of people haven't had optimism around for the past several decades. But it's time to be optimistic again. We're doing great things in this country and around the world. And as a result, our air is going to be cleaner, our water is going to be cleaner, we're going to have quality jobs for people, and we're going to have all these great solutions that make your life better. So when you think about people's decisions at home, people are buying electric vehicles. They don't have to go to the gas station anymore. People are buying heat pumps that now they can actually replace an old air conditioning system that's breaking down with something that does both air conditioning and heating. You get two for the price of one. You're starting to see water heaters that used to be electric resistance water heaters now being heat pump water heaters. So I think the level of technology progress is providing better solutions so that when people have, old appliances that are just breaking on a natural cycle, they're replacing them with much cooler stuff. And then some people are even deciding to put in battery backup and solar on their homes so that they can ride out any weather events or other things without any disruption to Wi-Fi and the rest of the things that people take for granted these days. And so all of these solutions are coming online now, and it's never been more exciting.
Yeah, and going back to the first point you made is, climate literacy is a huge push for earthday.org. And we have, I don't know, 40, 50 countries that will have committed to climate literacy and its connection to jobs, which is the point that we're pushing by the time we show up at the next COP. So we're pretty encouraged that people see the connection, as you said, between education and jobs. I think the other thing it does is provide some resilience to young people who are either disillusioned or anxiety ridden about climate change. And so I think that combination of educating them, making them more comfortable with the situation, and introducing them, as you said, to the wonders of renewable energy and everything that goes with it, along with the jobs, will really help. And so, thinking about all of that, if there was one major change in the renewable energy sector that you could, snap your fingers and make happen, what would it be?
I think that, one of the things that I've faced as an entrepreneur in this sector is that a lot of people really viewed themselves as underdogs. They really viewed themselves as people who were in the alternative energy industry. Well, 90% of everything that we've added to the grid in the last 9 years has been clean, right? We're not alternative anymore. We are the energy industry. And as the energy industry, there is a commitment that we have to make to quality jobs for construction, quality maintenance to make sure that these things are up and running and working really well, but also investing in the communities that we serve, making sure that we're following some of the best practices on environmental justice and making sure that all of those pieces are in place. I think for a long time, people said, well, wait till we get big enough, then we will do all those things. Well, we're big enough now. And so now it's time to take responsibility for the fact that there are many people who rely on the renewable energy industry to be good citizens, right? Not just deploying wind or solar or geothermal or nuclear or battery storage or hydro, but also making sure that those communities are protected, that all of the children are educated in those schools around climate and all those other pieces, but also making sure that those people who feel left behind are also brought along so that they are also seeing the benefits of renewable energy. And that is something that we have to do intentionally. And I think that you're seeing a lot of executives in this space learning on how to do that well. And so it's an exciting time to see the renewable energy sector starting to embrace this bigger responsibility.
Yeah, and are you? I guess the benefits you've sort of highlighted include reduction in GHG emissions, creating jobs, health, equity. Do you think the rest of the world sees it that way too? Is it just the U.S.? Is it all of us? How do you see it playing out, and how is the U.S. interacting with this around the world?
Well, there's two pieces to this, right? One is people want electricity abundance, right? They want access to enough electricity to be able to fully fulfill their hopes and dreams, whatever they are, right? And that is something that's true in every country around the world. But separately, there are a lot of people who remember the pandemic and they remember when everything shut down, how clean their air was, how, quiet it was outside, how like much pollution we live with on a regular basis. And I think when you think about what renewable energy has to offer, it allows you to experience that, wonderful time of like no more pollution and no more noise pollution every day. People live with all that pollution regularly. And so I think when you think about where we are headed to a place where you will have electricity abundance and clean air, clean water, and quality jobs, right? And I think for a long time, people thought that this was impossible. That if you
Yeah.
wanted electricity abundance, you had to live with pollution. And that may have been true in the past, but now that clean energy has gotten so cheap and is getting cheaper every day, you see places like Pakistan around the world where they have imported so many solar panels that people didn't even know about until they did global GIS mapping and saw them all from a satellite photo. And so when you think about how scrappy people are around the world, they are choosing to be scrappy around clean energy. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and you think all of this is true, notwithstanding this, what we read about every 5 minutes, the demands of AI and the capacity issue. You think we can still keep up with it?
I think we have to. Look, I think that when you think about where we are as a species, right, we basically went from burning things for hundreds of years to now figuring out how to use all of the next generation technologies that we've invented since the 1970s and figuring out how to deploy it at scale, right? And through that scale, we are figuring out how to reduce pollution around the world, right? Whether it's microplastics or whether it's things like air pollution and water pollution, or when you think about human health, right? There are a lot of interconnected systems here where all of these new technologies deployed at scale are going to make people's lives better, right? And so I think it's important to recognize that we have a lot of the technologies that we need to be able to bring this uh, full, positive outcome to the world. And also, we're going to need a few more technologies, and that's why the Department of Energy and many others have doubled down on research to making sure we can decarbonize industry, we can decarbonize shipping, we can decarbonize aviation, all of which probably need a few more breakthroughs. But we're on it. It's super exciting.
Yeah, and I think, in a way, when you look at the investments, the train left the station. So even the naysayers, I think, when you just look at the amount of money that's being invested, it's too late to go back. And so I guess my last question to you, given I'm bullish on renewables generally, what do you think the energy landscape looks like for our kids 50 years from now? What do you think they'll see when they're our age or older?
Yeah, look, I think electricity and energy broadly is supposed to be things that people don't think about very much. It just happens. There's a whole group of us who make sure that it's abundant and reliable and resilient for everybody. And I think we will accomplish that in a few generations. And what I want my, 9-year-old son to think about, but also all the other kids in the world to think about is how they're going to make the world a better place, how we're going to make the world kinder, how we're going to make the world more peaceful, how we're going to explore space, how we're going to explore the depths of the ocean, how we're going to live more collaboratively with biodiversity and all of the Earth's many wonders, right? I think there's so much more for us to accomplish, and energy just needs to be decarbonized. We need to get out the pollution, and we need to make sure that that is something that doesn't consume our time and effort anymore. But instead, we're working on other big issues like human health and biodiversity and all of the exploration that we have yet to do.
Well, on that very uplifting note, Jigger, I'll let you go back to your day job, which is saving the planet along with earthday.org. So thank you, as always, for your very measured and thoughtful words, and keep up the good job that you're doing, because we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. I love the fact that you are dedicated to making sure that people around the world see all of the extraordinary progress we're making, and of course, all the remaining work we have left to do.
Great. Thanks, Jigger.